Hey there, I'm Alex Kidman and this is the Nebula Capsule Air Projector. Let's get into the review. But before we start, I should point out, as with my prior projector reviews, that I'm shooting all this video in my office, but I've actually tested the projector in my home. For reasons of privacy, I'm not shooting in those spaces, but I have tested this in more regular consumer spaces. I'm not suggesting that it can only project onto the side of a box in really small sizes, because it can actually go quite large. It's just that for reasons of privacy, I choose not to shoot in those other places. Please understand. So in the portable projector space, you can get projectors in all sorts of shapes and sizes. The smallest I can recall reviewing was quite a while ago, the MotoMod InstaShare projector, though sadly that review has been lost to the winds of internet time, but I digress. So the Nebula Capsule Air's smaller than typical size wasn't entirely a surprise to me. What was something of a surprise was quite how much like a soft drink can that it looks. I honestly keep having to resist the urge to put it into my fridge, which would not be good for it. But at 68 by 68 by 140 millimeters, it's got nearly the same shape and size as whatever choice of carbonated tooth rotter you prefer has. Mind you, at 650 grams, it's rather more hefty than any soft drink can I've ever lifted up. Still, portability is really the name of the game here. Stylistically, the Nebula Capsule Air Projector comes in either white or black finishes. The model that Anker, Nebula's parent brand, loaned to me was the black one. And honestly, it's the version I'd advocate for. Sure, white has that whole kind of Apple-ish, minimalistic cool to it, but in a darkened room, a black projector is just always your much better choice. In terms of controls, you get touch controls at the top to cover most basic functions, but they're pretty small. I'm not a big fan of touch controls. And honestly, I tended to use this supplied remote, which is basic but perfectly functional most of the time. One of the odder aspects of the remote is that it's slightly taller than the projector it works from. But it's worked quite well for my purposes. It's good, I suppose, to have the touch controls as a backup, but do you really want to get up from your sofa or beanbag or wherever you are to change a TV setting manually these days? I don't think you do. The rear of the Nebula Capsule Air Projector houses its inputs, which are, well, minimalistic. There's an IR receiver port sitting above the power button, which sits above the USB-C power input, which itself is nestled above a single HDMI port. There is support for HDMI CSC built in if you did want to go down that route with a soundbar or other similar control device. Where the design of the Nebula Capsule Air Projector gets interesting is in the base. The standard unit has a single tripod screw mount, so you could connect it to your choice of tripod for your on-the-go projection needs, but you also get a snap-on base that connects it with a simple twist to the bottom of the projector. Now this does raise it a couple of centimeters, but it's not really there just to be a simple booster seat. A metal ring at the bottom of the snap-on base folds out to provide balance while you tilt the Nebula Capsule Air Projector itself to whatever projection angle best suits your needs. Now, you can make it topple over if you go too far with this, but it's an interesting way of dealing with the issue of this projector not having its own rotating headstand. Of course, works quite well actually. There are a couple of other snap-on gadgets that you can use to enhance the Nebula Capsule Air Projector, including a gimbal stand for 360-degree angular projection choices, and a powerbank tripod stand to both lift it up and enhance its battery life. Neither of those are slated to hit Australian shores until July, however, so I haven't been able to test those out as part of this review. Like the recently reviewed Epson EF22 laser projector, the Nebula Capsule Air Projector isn't just a simple plug-and display projector. It has Google TV features built in. Nebula's claim is that this is the world's smallest Google TV projector. And that means setup is just that little bit more convoluted because you've got to connect it to your Wi-Fi network and then enable and sign into whatever streaming apps you'd like to use with it. Now, that does open up a lot of streaming apps for your portable viewing pleasure without needing any kind of additional set-top box or thing plugged into that HDMI port. The one feature it doesn't support that I really would have liked to see is full casting capability. That way I could fling content from my phone straight to the Nebula Capsule Air Projector, but it's not to be. The Epson was the same. It may be a limitation of the platform, but it's just a pity that these things aren't full-on Chromecast as well, because that would be kind of awesome, wouldn't it? Speaking of the Epson, I criticised that projector for its slow response within Google TV, so I was kind of wary approaching the Nebula in this respect, but I need not have worried. It is reasonably responsive. It's not exactly fast, this isn't a high-end set-top box in that sense, but it's responsive enough. I wasn't really left waiting and pausing and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting the way I just far too often was with the Epson. In projection terms, this is a 720p capable projector, though it can take a 1080p input and downscale it, with predictable slight drops in sharpness as you'd expect. The smaller size of the projector does make it more suited to smaller projection sizes, though it can project an image of up to 80 inches in size. And look, that's still a fairly big TV, though clearly if you were expecting a full-on cinema at home experience, you'd probably have to look slightly differently to this. Again, though, that's kind of the sacrifice of portability here. This is one you can move around, not necessarily one you're going to install in your ceiling or anything like that. The one big caveat here to the whole experience is the rate of brightness of the Nebula Capsule Air Projector. It's only 150 lumens, which isn't particularly bright by projector standards. Now, as you can see here, it does okay. This is a reasonably well-lit room. I can see what's going on, but it's not the best picture in brighter situations. Obviously, that is going to depend on how you plan to use it as to how much of an issue that is, and your cinephiles will have run screaming as soon as I said 720p anyway. So, yeah, this is not exactly unexpected, but certainly it could do with being a bit brighter. That would have been a little bit better. You do also get inbuilt speakers, and the inbuilt speakers that you get on these portable projectors, look, they're nearly always kind of awful. And these aren't totally awful. They're kind of loud, actually. They were surprisingly robust in terms of volume, but volume and quality are not the same things. And honestly, if you're listening to anything that needs audio fidelity, I would seriously suggest pairing up to a Bluetooth speaker, or in a pinch, you could use that HDMI port with a soundbar, although you're obviously going to sacrifice a lot of portability. For my testing purposes, I paired it up with a Beats pill, and that worked well enough and certainly improved the audio quality markedly. The Nebula Capsule Air Projector does a fair job of keystoning for automatic image correction, and you can take this manually if you've got specific needs. Although if you want to project up onto a ceiling, you actually have to go manual. Its automatic features do not work in that mode, and if you tilt it enough, it'll tell you this. The Nebula Capsule Air Projector's inbuilt battery is claimed to be good for up to 2 hours of TV or movie viewing time. And look, as always, up to figures can be rubbery as heck. So I absolutely needed to get testing it to get to the bottom of its realistic runtime. I've got a full video, which is mostly to do with mobiles, about phone battery tests, which you should go and watch, by the way. Talks an awful lot about the variability of battery testing, and that sort of applies here. So to be specific, what I've done here is run YouTube 720p videos, because I'll only do 720p, at moderate volume to the point of battery exhaustion, and timed that multiple times to get an average battery life out of this particular projector. So, Nebula's claim was 2 hours. What did I get? I got 2 hours, 16 minutes, and 54 seconds. And look, obviously, that's slightly more than Nebula's claims, which is pleasing. You could conceivably get a little more than that, obviously, if you were using like HDMI with Wi-Fi disabled, if you had volume down to a lower level. But it's nice to see over 2 hours, although with a sealed battery, obviously, over time, that figure is only going to drop. However, the core problem here remains, and that's the fact that even at 2¼ hours or 2 hours, if we take Nebula's figures, you're going to struggle to get through a lot of movies without some kind of external power. I mean, there goes anything from the Lord of the Rings movies, most Marvel flicks, Pulp Fiction, Scarface, Gone with the Wind, Oppenheimer. I mean, you get the idea, right? So should you buy the Nebula Capsule Air Projector? Well, look, it is a lot of fun, and it is nicely portable as well, even though it's far from the smallest projector you could buy. The Google TV integration works quite well, and while the speakers won't fool you into thinking you're sitting in an actual cinema, they'd work well enough for simpler fare such as live sports, for example. The lower than typical brightness may be an issue for you depending on where you choose to project, but the biggest catch here has to be the battery life. If you planned on some camping trips with a sheet strung between some trees to keep you entertained at night, it'd be wise to pack some power delivery certified battery packs to go along with it, unless you like rather short films.